Hey, welcome back guys. This is Jason, KM4ACK. Today, I want to show you how to send an APRS message from the command line and then how we can take that script and utilize it in other scripts. Stick around and we'll get right to it. Real quick before we get going today, I've got to give a shout out to these guys. They're my latest patrons over on Patreon. If you'd like to help support the channel, I'll leave a link to Patreon down in the description below. So before we get into the video itself, I do want to give you kind of a couple of pros and cons to utilizing this approach. First, it does not require a radio at all. This relies solely on the internet to deliver the message, or at least send it. Now, it does rely on RF to deliver the message. And that is a bit of an issue because you're not going to be able to run this, say, in an off-grid type scenario. And normally, I shy away from scripts and applications that are directly dependent on the internet. However, there are some times that we can utilize this connected to the internet to benefit us. Another downside to this is if you do choose to send a message to another APRS station, you will not be able to receive replies, so it is a one-way street. But how I utilize this is not only to send a quick message from the command line, but I utilize this to allow me to monitor systems and receive a text message on my mobile device if one of my systems is offline. And that's what we're going to do after I introduce you to the initial script. We're actually going to write a custom script and show you how I utilize that to alert me when one of my systems is offline. Let's go ahead and jump over to the Pi and get started. So the first thing we're going to do is go over to this particular GitHub repository. It's by WA1GOV, and I'll leave a link to this right here across the bottom of the screen, and I'll leave it down in the description of the video as well. Once you get over to this page here, though, we're going to click on Shell Message right here, and once that loads up, we'll go ahead and click on the raw button right here. Now make sure you don't skip this step of clicking on the raw button or things are not going to work out correctly for you. Once you've clicked on that raw button, you'll come into this screen here that looks like just a plain text file. Let's come right up to the top here and highlight this address, and then we're just going to copy it. I'm pressing Control-C on the keyboard to get that copied. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and minimize the web browser and open up a terminal window. Let's go ahead and move to our downloads directory with cd space downloads. And then I'm going to use the wget command, so wget space, and I'm going to paste in that link that we just copied. And we'll go ahead and press return and give that just a couple of seconds to download. I'll go ahead and clear the screen and list out that directory. Now, we do need to make that, that script executable. So I'm going to do that with chmod +x and give it the name of the script, which is shellmessage.sh. We run the ls command again, and you'll see that that is in green, indicating that it's executable. Now, we need to make a couple of quick modifications inside the script itself. In order to do that, I'm going to run nano space shellmessage.sh. We'll go ahead and press return. It's going to bring us into the script itself. And what we're looking for is these two lines right here, our call sign and our password. So I'm going to go over on the call sign, and I'm going to delete out all of the X's. I'm just going to enter my call sign, and I'm going to give it -6. 6 is the SSID that I want to use for this. You can use whichever SSID you want to, but 6 is one that I use most of the time for testing purposes. Now, for the password, it tells you right here the website that you want to go to so that you can generate your passcode. It calls it a password over here and a passcode here. Passcode, I believe, is the correct terminology here. So I'm going to go back up to the website, or to the web browser rather, and I have already navigated to this APRS passcode generator. Now I'm going to key in my call sign here. Obviously you will key in your own, and I'm going to click get the passcode. And it will generate that passcode for you. So in this case, mine is 20389. You'll want to enter your passcode instead of mine. We'll minimize this. And back in the terminal window, where it's got that 12345, I'm going to take that out and put in my own passcode here. Make sure you do not delete those quotation marks. Once you've put in your call sign and your password, just go ahead and press Control S to save the file and Control X to get out of it. Now, we're still in our downloads directory. Let's clear that screen out. To start this script, you would just run /shellmessage.sh. Now, if you try to run it with just that command, you're going to get this reply here that tells you we need the call sign, the SSID, and the message that you want to deliver it to. So for this quick example here, I'm just going to send it over to my HT. So what we're going to do is we're going to enter /shellmessage.sh. Then I'm going to tell it the call sign and the SSID that I want to send it to, and -7 is my HT's SSID. And then I'm going to give it quotation marks, and we'll just say test for video, and we'll close those quotation marks. Now, if we just go ahead and press return, it's going to go through, log into the servers, and then send out our test message. Okay, so now that you've seen how we can send an APRS message from the command line, what I want to show you next is how to utilize that in our own custom script to do other things for us. Now, this is going to get a bit long and it's going to run for a while, but I want to go over this and cover it in as much detail as possible so that you can take the information you learn here today and apply it to your own setup. So let's head back over to the Pi and get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is over here on my desktop, I'm going to just right click and say new file. And we'll just call this system-check. And we'll say OK. Now let's go ahead and right click on that and say text editor. That'll open this up in a simple little notepad. If you don't have line numbers, it might be better if you turn those on. You can come up to the top here and click View, and then make sure that you've got a check mark beside line numbers. Now, every script has to start off with something called the shebang line. That is this line right here. So we'll go ahead and open with our shebang line, telling the system that we're going to be using the bash language. Now guys, we're going to be jumping back and forth between this document that we're creating and the terminal line because I want to be able to show you a few different things. So on the command line, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start Direwolf because that is the application that we want to check and see if it's running and then send us a message over APRS if it's not running. So we'll go ahead and start Direwolf here. Now I do have a rig control error, but it's not going to keep the application from running. This is just a test box and I don't have everything configured on this. I'm going to jump over to another tab. Now if you don't know how to open new tabs inside your terminal, you'll press Control, Shift, and T, Tango, on your keyboard to open up a new tab. In this new window, I'm going to run a simple command of PID OF. And then I'm going to give it Direwolf out beside it. This command simply checks to see if Direwolf is running. If it is running, it's going to return a process ID number for us. So you know that I have Direwolf running in this terminal window here. and it returned this number to us. Now I'm going to jump back over to the window that's running Direwolf and actually stop the Direwolf application. Let's go back to the other window and let's run that same command of PID OF space Direwolf again. And this time you'll see that we get no results returned to us, so you know that Direwolf is not running. Now there's multiple ways to do this exact same thing. This is just one way that we can do it. And kind of the whole purpose behind this, I utilize this or a script very similar to this to check my APRS Digipeater every single morning and make sure that things are functioning correctly. So the system reboots at every night at 11:30, and I want to check that and verify that everything came back online like it's supposed to. But today we're just going to be checking to see if Direwolf is running or not. Now let's jump back over to the document that we're starting to create, and we're going to simply create a variable, and I'm going to call that dire, D-I-R-E, in all capital letters. Now I want this variable to run the PIDOF command. So I'm going to say dire equals, we're going to give it the $ and the opening parentheses. Now we're going to type our command PIDOF space Direwolf and give it the closing parentheses. Now in a script you can always echo out your variable by just saying echo string and the variable name. It is case sensitive, so you want to pay attention to that. So I'm just going to save that really quick. Let's go back over here and start Direwolf again. And then I'm going to come to that other tab that I have open. And I'm going to move to the desktop because that's where I created that system check script. So if I run the ls command, you'll see the system check script right here. Let's go ahead and make that executable with chmod space +x system-check. Now if we run this system check script, it's going to see if Direwolf is running, and it's going to echo out the process ID number since Direwolf is running. And there you can see that it just echoed out this process ID number right here. Okay, so let's go back over, and now that we know that it is grabbing our process ID number correctly, I'm going to take out that echo line. What I want to do next is I want to write a very simple if-then statement. So I'm going to say if space and give it an open bracket -z. Now -z just says check to see if the variable is empty. And we're going to give it an open quotation. We're going to give it the variable name. Now remember, you got to put the $ in front of it to make that happen. And I'm going to give it the closing bracket. Now in here, spaces are critical. So if you notice, I've got a space right here, a space here, and a space right here after this quotation mark. I'm going to give it a semicolon and then after it. We'll go down to the next line, and we're going to say if it's empty, we're going to say echo Direwolf not running. We'll give it the closing quotation mark there. And I'm going to go down to the next line, and I'm going to close the if statement with FI. FI just tells it that the if statement is done. And I'm going to save this out. Now, as long as Direwolf is running, nothing is going to happen right here. So let's go back over to our terminal window, and let's run that system check command again. And it's just going to return us back to the command prompt because Direwolf is running. Now I'm going to go over to this window here, and I'm actually going to stop Direwolf so it's no longer running. Let's jump back over to the other tab, and let's go ahead and run that again. This time it should tell us that Direwolf is not running. And there you go. Direwolf isn't running on the system. So that's the whole purpose of that if statement, is just to check and see if Direwolf is running, and then tell us if it is, or do nothing if it isn't. Or wait, I said that backwards. It's going to tell us if it's not running, and it's going to do nothing if it's running. So now let's go back to our script and let's expand on this a little more. Instead of this echo statement right here, I actually want to change this to a variable. So I'm going to say MSG for message equals, and I'm going to leave this Direwolf not running right here. Now, the next thing we want to do, now that we've checked to see if Direwolf is running, we want our script to send us a message if it is not running. That way we could be alerted if the system didn't start up correctly. So the next thing we need to do is inside our if statement, we're going to hit the return button so we can generate a new line. Now we want to utilize that shell message script that we just installed at the beginning of the video. So let's go back over to our terminal for a second, and I'm going to move to the downloads directory with cd:/downloads. Let's run that ls command again. You'll see that our shell message script is sitting right there. Next, I'm going to run the pwd command, or print working directory. And this is what I'm looking for here, because in a script, we need to define the exact path of where a script is located when we want to call it. So I'm going to just copy this information right here, and back in our script that we're working on, I'm going to paste that in. Now that's the path. We also need to give it the script name that we are working with. And let's make sure I spell that correctly. Shellmessage.sh. I did. Now, remember, when we call that script, we've got to tell it who the message is going to, and we need to give it the message. Now, what I want to do, though, is I want to send this to a cell phone number. So I'm going to address the message to SMS GTE. And then the actual message that I want to give it, I'm going to give it a quotation mark here. I'm going to give it the @ symbol. And what I'm doing is I'm going to use an alias for the SMS GTE service to send this to my cell phone. Now, if you haven't seen my video on SMS GTE and the way it works with aliases, I'll leave a link to that down in the description below. But basically, I'm going to be sending this message to SMS GTE that's going to deliver it to my cell phone as a text message. So I'm going to give it the @ symbol and give it ME behind it. And then I want to give it our message variable, which is right here. So I'm going to say string MSG, and I'm going to close the quotation marks right there. And that's as simple as it can be. We'll go ahead and press the save button on our script, and let's jump back to the terminal window for just a second. Let's take a look right here, and you can see that Direwolf is indeed not running. So let's go ahead and move back to our desktop directory with cd:/desktop, and let's run our system check script again. Because Direwolf is not running, it should verify that, and then it should send us a message using the new shellmessage.sh script that we've installed. So let's go ahead and run /system check. And you'll see that it is indeed sending a message out using that service, and you can see the text message that just came in right there on my Mac computer. So it is working. Now, if you wanted to automate this so that it ran at a specific time each day, you could use a cron job to automate that process, and say run this script every morning at 6 a.m. and you could verify if Direwolf was running or not. I'm taking this a step further in my script where I am checking my APRS digipeater. I am having it check both Direwolf and Exaster to make sure both applications are running. So you can expand on this and do a lot of different things with it to help you monitor maybe a system that you want to be certain is running, and just have it check that system once each day. All right, guys, I know this one ran a little bit long, but I hope that it explained it thoroughly enough that you can take it and do something cool with your setups. Be sure to give us a thumbs up if you found this video helpful. We will see you guys on the next one. Until then, 7-3.